I think we can probably get started, guys. Just as a reminder, we're going to talk about the robotics and implementing the robotics solution today. We also gonna have some time for Q&As at the end. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat box to your right-hand side. And we'll be basically starting from now, right? So let me introduce, actually, let's start with Marco, right? Let's introduce Marco and Promobi first. So Marco, the
Yeah,
floor is yours for
thank you.
introduction.
So my name is Marko Milicevic. I'm business development manager and sales director at ProMobi. ProMobi is the biggest repair center, authorized repair center in Balkan region. So our core business is mobile device repair. We are authorized, so we have contracts from all of the major brands of devices. So Apple, Samsung, Huawei, Xiaomi, Honor, Motorola, Nokia, and so on. So we also do businesses with all of the telco operators in Serbia. So we are based in Belgrade, Serbia. And we also do business with all of the biggest retail chains, such as Gigatron and Technomania and so on. Some of the people who are familiar with them would know. So, like I said, our core business is mobile device repair, but we also do home appliance repair. So we are authorized by Samsung to repair all of the refrigerators, like washing machines and all the other home appliance devices, as well as the smaller devices such as vacuum cleaners, microwaves, and so on. Besides mobile device repair, which we are the leader in our country, in our market, since 2009. We recently also started to develop the sales channel. So we are the authorized distributor of Huawei devices in Serbia. So we sell Huawei devices to big retail chains in the open market, and we're also looking to expand our portfolio to encompass other brands as well. Besides that, we also are a wholesaler of spare parts for this market. So because we are an authorized repair center, we have access to original spare parts, and we supply smaller repair shops with spare parts. Besides that, we are also developing our retail chains. So we're not a big retail chain. This is not our primary business, but we have about 5 stores in Serbia. We are most proud of our relationship with Samsung because we own a Samsung premium brand store in the biggest shopping mall in Serbia. So we sell devices as well to the end users. So, like I said, repair is our core business. We are the biggest repair center in terms of revenue, in terms of devices repaired each month. Our capacity is about 15K devices, so 15,000 devices each month. And like I said, distribution and wholesale and retail. So we are everywhere basically in the supply chain. But we'll touch more in detail in later on in this webinar about our experience with robotics, especially for retail. We had the pleasure of having this machine in our premium brand store in the shopping mall, and we'll talk more about our experience in that segment. So,
Great.
yours.
Yeah. Thanks, Marco, for such a detailed introduction. And it's great that we have a company with such a versatile portfolio, right? Which I guess could be like really relevant for anyone listening, because it's going to be relevant for both like retail, wholesale, repair scenarios. So it's good that we have that in your phase today. So let's actually introduce Ansys as well, right? My name is Mike. I'm a business development manager here at Ansys Group. And at Ansys Group, we are basically software developers since 2017. We've started as a company that developed the software for functionality diagnostics and data erasure for mobile devices, smartphones and tablets. And we've also grown our portfolio of solutions. We've expanded to providing the solutions for buyback, for phone price evaluation, provided solution for automated cosmetic grading of the phones, inventory management, and obviously our biggest achievement for now is that we've built a robot that can automatically process phones so that you can completely automate your functionality testing, your grading, and your buyback processes, right? And this is actually a good segue for the topic of the today's webinar, right? Which is how to reduce cost per unit and increase productivity with a robotic solution, right? Because our idea, right, our company mission is to help people in this industry, in the mobile industry, to be as efficient as possible, right, to streamline their phone testing processes, to reduce the costs related to buying phones from individuals, to reduce those risks, and of course, increase the productivity in the sense of giving you more time back so that you can, obviously scale your business as a result, right? And we're gonna talk today with Marco about ProMobi's experience with implementing the robotic solution. And we're gonna actually handle both scenarios, right? We're gonna handle the retail scenario of implementing the robotics, right, for trade-in and buyback cases. And we're also gonna talk about wholesale use of the robotics, right? Because they have bit different background, big different benefits, right? So let's actually start with the first issue, right? With operating costs that are related to the retail business, right? So obviously, when we are talking about retail buyback, we need to take into consideration the employee wages, right? The time that you spend for estimating the phone, right? And obviously, for businesses, it's interesting to try to optimize and reduce those costs. So we're really interested in getting the real business case, right? And in this case, ProMobi's experience with tackling this issue with the help of the robotic solution. So Mark, if you can talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So the biggest thing is to determine how much is your cost per unit. And this is mostly determined by your employee wages. So the employee wages are definitely the biggest cost to consider. So depending of your country and depending on the wages you have in your company, you should have to first determine how much it costs you to service each device. So and then to determine how much benefit you can gain from a robotic solution. So this is dependent on the volume you have. This is dependent on the number of employees you have, and so on. So the first step is to determine what is your cost per unit, and then to see how you can minimize it. So one way to do it is to cut your costs, which is always hard to do if you know that you need everything. But another thing you can do is also to increase productivity. So this is the point where we're gonna talk more about. So in terms of robotic solutions, the best thing about it is that you can easily reproduce it, so you can easily scale it. You don't need to have a lot of training to operate it, so anyone can do it basically, and it minimizes the mistakes you can make because it's all standardized and your procedures are standardized. So the biggest thing is to determine the costs and then see how you can reduce it. So this is the biggest point in my opinion. You're muted if you're saying anything.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that's I want to say that that's a great point. I think that related to our next topic, right, which is lack of automation, right? So when we're talking about, especially when we're talking about the retail process of buying back phones, normally what we hear that it is really manual, right? So it's hard to sort of like set it up just because of how complicated it is and just because of how many like possibilities there are, right? Because when it comes to phones, we have all those different models, right? All those different specs that are available on the market. So you need to have like a system with the devices that you buy, and then there are like different factors with regards to the cosmetic state of the device, with regards to the functionality of the device, right? Which is really difficult to build that sort of system in the first place, right? And secondly, it's I guess a bit difficult to control as well how it's implemented by your employees, let alone scale that and replicate that across your different location, right? So I was wondering, Marco, if you have any like feedback or any take on that. For example, like what was the issue that you were
Mhm.
facing, and sort of like how the robotic solutions help you address that.
Yeah, so we used the NCS robot in two different scenarios. Like you said in the beginning, we had it in our retail store and we had it in our warehouse. So there's different benefits to both appliances. For wholesale, for warehouse operations, so we have about 4 to 5 people at any time which operate before we use the robot, which operates the servicing of the phone. So determining diagnostics, determining the grading, the physical appearance, and so on. So about 4 to 5 people operated. Let's say on average about few hundred to 1,000 devices each day. So this is something that you should have to take into account. So if your business is growing, how many people you need to have in your operations that can do this? And also you have to consider some of the challenges, which is basically you have to train these people. You have to everyone has to do it productively, because if they're not using their time productively, it costs you money. Time is money. So basically you need to have good management practices, strict procedures. Everyone has to be on the same page of what they're doing at the same time, because this is a chain. Basically, some people are first doing the diagnostics, then some people are grading the phones. Depending on how you set up your operations, it should go smoothly, and it should be consistent. So the problem with people, the human factor, is that everyone is subjective. So basically, some of the issues we had is one employee says this is B grade, another employee says this is A grade, and this determines your price if you're going to sell these devices later on. So subjectivity is a big issue. Productivity is also another issue. Not everyone is as fast, and not everyone is on the same page. Someone is doing faster their job, and then there is bottlenecks in the chain, throughout the chain. So this is some of the issues which we experienced. Also, people get sick. People don't come to work, and you cannot be dependent on that. You have to keep on going, even if they're sick, and this affects your processes. This affects your results. So all of this has to be taken into account when determining if robotics is the right solutions for you. We'll talk more about benefits and how this robot solves some of these issues which I mentioned. But right now, these are some of the biggest points that I would make. So unoptimized business practices, insufficient automation, ineffective personnel management, and you have to also take into account sick days and everything else. So if you have constant quantities of devices, you cannot be reliant on these factors. You have to figure out a way how to solve these issues to move your business forward. So this is something which we considered when we first spoke with NCIS, and in the years we are working together, we managed to find a way to make the best possible practices in our business and to achieve the best results so far. So you need to cut down the costs of people and other operating expenses with these tools you can implement. So if you can do it, it makes sense. If it makes sense on the paper, if it makes sense in business, in money, if it makes financial sense, then you should definitely think about how you can improve it. If it does, if you don't have quantities, if you don't have a stable business, then you have to figure out some other way. So this is some points to keep in mind for this kind of business.
Yeah, yeah, good stuff. And I like your point about also like sort of like having a standard for the process, right? Sort of like eliminating this subjectivity, which I guess also for business is really important to understand where they are currently and the potential in which they can go, because you have the stable time of test with the robotics, right? You have the standard results with grading and testing. So, I mean, it's just, I guess, really important for the business to sort of like have this standard, right?
Also, I would also like to add one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
This is mostly what I was talking about in our warehouse operations. So you don't have any contact with customers. Here everything is, let's say, inside your team. Everyone is doing the same thing. When you have contact with customers, it becomes even more difficult to do it properly, because the main thing about retail businesses so far, which I would say, is the time you have to spend with your customer. If you have a high traffic in your retail shops, and you cannot afford to waste a lot of time with specific customer, because other people are coming in, and you're losing sales because you're not involving yourself with other buyers. So especially in my experience, I was speaking with the biggest retail chains in Serbia, and their experience, they told me they cannot waste more than 2 to 3 minutes per customer, and if they because of high traffic. So you have to also keep that in mind. If you want to buy back the device and you're speaking with the customer, if it takes 15 minutes, then basically, and at the end, he decides not, or she decides not to sell you the device, you wasted a lot of time, and also the opportunity cost of spending this time with another customer who might sell their device and do the trade-in or buyback. So with robot, and we will talk more about this in later on. You have this opportunity to also do the diagnostic, do the grading, and do all these processes. So the robot is doing all of this stuff, so it gives you free time to engage with other customers. And this is the main benefit, I would say, of having a robot in your retail shop, especially if it's in high traffic shop. You have more time to spend with customers, and it leaves you more time to engage. And if you have good salesmen, they will know how to use it, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. Because it's not only about the time that it takes to actually, process the phone and give the quote to the customers, but also about the time that your employee now has actually servicing the customer, right? Which is crucial. And if you have like a long process where it takes like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes per customer, and it's evening time, and you have like 3 people who want to trade in their devices, you can pretty much be sure that the third one will just go home and not sell his device to you, which is
Yeah,
a lost
people don't
opportunity.
want to wait. People want attention, and then you have to find a way how to service everyone. Uh, and also, you have to also keep in mind that the salesmen are also people, and
Mhm.
they are not they're not super people. They cannot do everything at once. So you have to keep that also in mind. If they're concentrating in the diagnostics of the device and grading the device, they are not concentrated on the sale. So they
Mhm.
have to be focused on selling while the robot does its thing. So this is the biggest benefit in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I just want to comment that I see some questions that are coming in the chat, guys. Thanks a lot for posting those. And I just want to remind everyone that you can post your questions in the chat box. We're gonna read those at the end of the session today. So we're gonna have also a Q&A session, so you can post your questions for Marco or me. Right. So actually, we kind of talked about this a little bit earlier, right? About the ineffective staff management, right? You were mentioning that, you know, obviously people are people, right? They get sick sometimes, they can get distracted, and without like a stable system that is, easy and that is repeatable, it's sort of like hard to actually, control the business processes. Can you maybe explain or give like an example of something maybe in particular which comes to mind with regards to the staff management?
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
yeah.
So recently, one of our, let's say, most productive employees in this segment of operation of our business quit. So he was like he had the most units per day serviced and so on. So you also have to keep that in mind. People might leave,
Mhm.
and people are if you have if you're doing this job, there's a high employee turnover. So
Yeah.
you also then you have to find someone else, and you have to train them, and you have to wait for some time until they get the hang of it. So
Mhm.
this is the problem with people, let's say the human
Yeah.
factor. So you might be lucky, you might find someone who gets it quickly, who does it without any issues and so on, but you cannot rely on that, on luck. You have to have something concrete, something stable. So I would say the human factor can be, if not eliminated, minimized with automation, with robotics. So um, it all comes down to at the end how much it costs you to service each device. If you have good numbers, if you have a lot of quantity, uh, it makes sense to invest in automation and to decrease the probability of some of these issues which we mentioned. If you have unstable quantities and so on, then you have to factor that also into account when
Mhm.
determining if this is the right fit for you. So this is something that I would say for this topic.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So our robot doesn't consider working in a retail shop as their summer job, so you can
Yeah, exactly.
pretty much rely on it for the entirety. Right. So let's actually talk about some of the problems, and you kind of mentioned that as
Mhm.
well, right? When it comes to like retail and wholesale, right? The high staff turnover, the need to constantly train staff, and the human factor, right? I guess we can also expand on the scalability, right? And how pretty much easy it is to implement the robotic solution, right? Given that it doesn't require any in-depth technical knowledge or any expertise or experience, right? And you can pretty much rely on a person with little to no experience to actually operate the robot and perform such complex tasks as buying back the device, evaluating the trade-in value, which is a complicated thing, right? But with a solution like that, um, you can pretty much rely on unexperienced staff to do that, right?
Yeah.
And also the human factor, right? Because the grading is done automatically through the machine learning algorithms, and because the testing is done automatically as well, you don't need to worry about human making a mistake there, right? And I guess the mistakes, especially when we're talking about buyback, can be quite costly.
Yeah. So you mentioned scalability. What we're meddling in currently is figuring out how many machines we need in order to produce better results than we do right now. And you might have increased capital fixed costs in the beginning because you have to pay for these machines to use them. But in the long term, you can have one guy operating 5 to 10 machines.
Mhm.
Uh, while right now I have 4 to 5 people working this job, and it's like we said, the human factor is ever present. So if you have the scale, if you have the quantity, you can easily scale it, and one person or two-person, one per shift, can operate 5 to 10 machines at the same time. So
Mhm.
in the long term, you will have less cost per unit because you can easily scale it. And like you said, in our experience, we had about maybe 1 week of training
Mhm.
and of how to use the machine, and after that, uh, everyone anyone can use it basically. So you just follow step by step process, do this, do this, do this, and it's minimal involvement. Basically, the machine does all the work. You just have to put the phone in, wipe it, and then turn on debugging and some other specific steps, which I will not go into detail right now.
Mhm.
Maybe in some other time. But the you just have to follow a few steps, and then you can uh, leave that machine to do the rest, to do diagnostics and grading, and then operate another machine, and then another, and then so you basically can service. mm you know the numbers better than me because you have more experience than me, but you can increase it by a huge margin, in my opinion.
No, yeah, definitely. I see what you're saying there, and you're right. Actually, you can consider using several machines per one person, which will significantly improve the productivity, right? Because you can simultaneously feed phones to different machines, right? Which pretty much will, uh, improve your output with tested devices dramatically, right?
Yeah. And this is for warehouse business. So in
Mhm.
one place you have 5 machines, one guy can operate it. For retail, it's so we have the slide here.
Yeah.
You can also scale it because if you have multiple shops in our example, we have 5, but this is not a big retail chain by any means. If you have like 60 or 100 or more than that shops, you can easily scale it. You cannot easily scale it without the machine, basically, because you need to have good workers. They need to be properly trained and so on. With the machine, you can have one guy uh, just who knows the basic steps, and he can do it all. So you can
Mhm.
have a machine in each store, and if first of all you should do a pilot phase to see if it makes sense. In our opinion, in my opinion, put it somewhere you have high traffic, and then see if it makes sense. See if people are interested about it. And I will talk about more about our experience in our shopping mall premium brand store, but. If it makes sense, then you can easily reproduce it. You can buy another machine, put it in a different store, and step by step increase your productivity this way, and also attract customers because you have something new. Not everyone has a robot in their shop, and people would like to see it. So there is this wow effect, which
Yeah.
which is stated here. So. Um, people want to see it. This is something new, and in our experience, this is exactly what happened. We launched a short marketing campaign on our social media and our website, and basically a lot of people were standing in line to see how it works, because this is something new. They never seen a robot in action and so on. So it is good to generate traffic, even if you don't end up converting these people through buyback or trading. It is good to generate traffic and to stand out from your competition this way. And also it boosts your reputation this way, definitely, because you're forward thinking. You have a robot in your shop.
Yeah. Actually, this is really cool. I remember we spoke a little bit about this off the record. Are you open to sharing like some of the numbers that you actually achieved during the pilot of the robot in your shops? Because I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So usually we have about on average per week, on per day, about, let's say, 150 to 200 people coming in our store. So it's about we have this counter in our store which counts every time someone comes in. So this is some numbers we have without the robot. When we did the marketing campaign, we saw an increase of about 50%, because like I said, this is something new. People wanted to see it. A lot of people came, especially over the weekend, because this is a shopping mall and a lot of people go to shopping malls over the weekend. And we see an increase of about 50%. So if we had about, let's say, 150, we had about 250 people coming during those times we had the robot in our shop. So it generates traffic in our experience. So it proved that it attracted people. You don't have to have, I don't know what kind of marketing campaign. You just have to do to mention this, to state you can come see it. We do this at this time, and people will, if they're interested to see how it works and have free time, they will come and see it. And even if they don't want to do anything, they will see your store. They will see what you sell. They will see what you offer. So you have this opportunity to convert these people
Yeah.
to customers.
Yeah. I think you kind of mentioned something that I remember vividly, that those numbers are on par with the increase in traffic during like Black Friday or Christmas time, basically.
Yeah, like you have these kind of global events, uh, like something like that, basically.
Yeah.
Because
So,
it's not something you
mhm,
see every day.
yeah.
That's the main thing. You can see it in action. I don't know if you have some video to show people here, but this is something that very interesting to see.
Yeah, actually, we have. I also encourage guys, if you haven't seen this, we have a video on our YouTube channel with how the robotic solution works. And one of the shops, actually the flagman shop, yeah, I guess, in the biggest mall in the Balkans. So we have a video about that on our YouTube channel. Go watch this after the webinar. Um, right, cool. So let's move forward, right, and talk a little bit about the benefits of the robotic solution for on the wholesale perspective, right?
Mhm.
Because I guess here, right, the benefits is a little bit different, right? And the first thing that jumps to mind is, of course, the speed, right? Which, of course, everyone wants to process phones faster. But when we're talking about the warehouse that processes like thousands of phones each month, I think this is really crucial, right? And obviously, this is something that helps you sort of like increase the ceiling, right? So you can process more phones, right, with the help of the robotics, and of course, the human errors, which are addressed by the standardized process of the robotic testing, and obviously the labor cost, because as we mentioned earlier, you can use a robotics line of 4, 5 machines and only one operator who's processing that. And I can also share some numbers here. I guess this could be interesting for the people listening, right? So one robot can process around like 12 phones per hour for now. So if you take, in this case, 4 or 5 robots, you can easily increase the performance up to like 48, 50 phones per hour, and just one operator, which is, pretty cool, which is pretty fast. And this will obviously also help you reduce the labor cost at the same time. So um, obviously, Margaret, it's interesting to get your experience in terms of those benefits that you mentioned using the robots in the warehouse.
Yeah. So the biggest thing the biggest benefit is you have consistent tests. If like I said in the beginning, you have 5 people in this operation, every one of them has some idea what an A grade is, B grade is, and C grade is. With robot you don't have these problems, because every test will do the same thing, and it will grade the device based on the AI technology which ANSYS is developed, with I don't know how many millions of pictures you took so far. So you have good database to determine what is A grade, B grade, and C grade. And you can also, as I saw, you can also in the back end, in the admin panel of this software, you can determine what is the threshold for A grade, for example, 85, 90%. Is from 80 to 90 is B, or so on. You can adjust this as per your liking and as per your grading standards, and each test will be the same. Increase turnover to get more margin. So if you optimize your operations, this will reduce your cost per unit, and also reduce mistakes, which also have an effect on your cost per unit. And this way you will get more value out of the out of the out of the robot. And I pretty much spoke about all of the benefits so far, so I don't want to repeat myself.
Yeah, yeah, sure. I mean, I obviously covered a lot of benefits, right? So, I guess the interesting question is about the integration process, right, in the Samsung store, right? Can you talk to us a little bit about the experience with integrating maybe like your expectations versus reality, so to say? Like, was it a hard process of implementing, trading stuff and basically getting this up and running?
No, you not really. Actually, you just need to have good internet connection. You have to have enough room to place it. It's not a big machine. I don't know the exact specs, but you can have a small table which can hold it. What we did in Gallery, you can see it in the video on YouTube from NC's page. You don't need to have a lot of space if you need to have good internet, and you don't really have a lot of stuff to do. Basically, you just welcome people. They come in and they say, we saw this on your social media, you have this, we want to try it. And your salesman will walk over to the machine. They would press a button, it would open the hatch, and which you can put the device inside. You wipe it clean, which is what you need to do, and you connect it inside to USB port. Sorry, and then you just press the button, and the robot does all the rest. So while it's doing the process, you see on the screen what's it doing. You have a progress bar, so it's transparent, and as I understand, it will be more transparent in the future in the upcoming versions, where you have a camera inside to see what's happening, or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So people can see what's happening inside. There were some, let's say, uh, concerns from people. What is the robot doing at this time, and what's happening? inside the machine. People are their devices are their whole lives basically. They are very scared of what's going on. Is it gonna break it or something? And this way you can see what's happening on the screen. So step by step, it shows you what it's doing as the progress bar is moving, and you have the time while it's doing its thing. You have the time to talk about to talk with the customer about what you can offer in exchange for that device, for example. They can see what they can buy at your store. So it gives your salesman free time to do whatever, or to service other customers while the robot is doing its stuff.
Yeah.
So our experience was that, like I said, we had an increase in traffic because this is something new. People wanted to see it, and also an increase of trading devices. So because the main thing is when you're speaking with the person and the person is grading your device, the customer feels that, especially in Serbia, this is something which is Serbia known for. People want to haggle. People want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it for 400 euros, 500 euros. No, 400, and you have to convince them. This way, you have a robot and it does its thing, and you said the robot says it's like this, and no haggling this way. I mean, you can always give them some discounts if you wish, but this way they're not that prone to waste your time. Let's say like this. So this is something. And they're also scared, in some sense, because they're not that they cannot haggle with the machine.
Yeah.
So this way, when they see the price at the end of how much their device is valued, they can accept it, and we saw an increase of about, let's say, 15 to 20% turnover more for this time. We had it for a limited time, so it's not we didn't have it for a long time, but for this time, while we had the robot in our facilities, we saw an increase of completed trade-ins. So this is something important to mention. It depends on the store. It depends on the purchasing power of individuals and what you can offer in exchange for that device. But in the end, we see potential actually. So it's worth consideration.
That's actually a great topic that you touched on. I want to expand on that a little bit in terms of people having more trust in the robot, right, and in the process, probably viewing that as more independent, comparing to a process where there's a human being actually evaluating their phones and its trade-in value. So I want to ask you if you've noticed any conversion uplift with implementing the robot compared to the manual trading. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, like I said, about 15 to 20% was with an increase of completed trade-ins with the robot. But it depends on many factors. It depends on what you can offer in exchange. If you have good goods, good products to offer, they will be more prone to sell their device in exchange for the new one. And also another thing to mention as well. We have, as an authorized service center and authorized reseller and authorized distributor, we had this opportunity to also gain additional discounts from the vendors themselves. So, for example, if you can manage this is a win-win solution for everyone. For example, if you have a good relationship, for let's say, with Samsung distributors in your country or wherever you work, so you can ask them, okay, so I want to launch this trading campaign. I have this robot that I can use, and will you support me with additional, let's say, 100 euros discount if we sell your device, for example, Samsung flagship model, which is launching, and they, in my experience so far, they never refuse this offer. So they're looking for something new to promote, and they will be happy to, in my experience, to promote something such as this robot, because it improves their brand image as well. So
Yeah.
they can help you with increase of completed trade-ins if they want to also pitch in with additional support from their side. So what is the example? I have this S22 here, and I want to trade in for a new S23 or Z Flip or Z Fold, a new device. And I ask Samsung, okay, support me if, for example, S23 is about, let's say 1,000 euros. This device is considered to be, let's say, 300 euros, 400 euros. How? Don't quote me on the numbers, but I'm
Yeah.
just giving an example. So I traded in 400 euros to decrease the price of selling from 1,000 to 600, and also Samsung will support me with additional 100 euros. So if you can make this connection with distributors or the vendors themselves, if you have this kind of connection, this is a win-win solution which you must utilize. They will want to help you with additional support to sell their brand of devices. And then if Samsung accepts to do this, you can also use it with Huawei. You can also do it with Apple, with the distributors, in your country. So this is the best practice, in my opinion, for retail chains to consider. And this is what we did. So we did it for pre-order for Z Flip and Fold, which launched. It was pre-ordered a few weeks ago, I think, and we actually had a turnover of more devices than previous pre-orders. So good thing to consider if you can also combine it with additional support from vendors, and it will
Yeah.
make your offer more attractive, and also you can also then increase the price of the devices if you have this kind of support, because you can decrease the price. Decrease the price, because Samsung or Huawei or Apple will support you with additional 100 euros. You can decrease it for, let's say, 50 euros, and then you can sell the new device more easily this way, and get more value from trading this way.
Yeah, sounds good and great tip there. Love it. Cool. Let's actually talk a little bit about the robot itself, right? So as Marco mentioned, it's not a really huge device, right? Basically, it's a tabletop. You can also check out the video, I guess, for better understanding of how it looks, but it's basically not very big in size, which makes it suitable for both offline retail scenario, right, and warehouse processes. And as you can see, you just insert the device in the machine, connect it by cable so that it reads all the information from the device, right, such as like make, model, IMEI number, battery information, right? The information about the original parts. And right from the get-go, you'll get tons of valuable information from the device. And when the testing is done, right, the machine can automatically grade the phone. It will take 6 pictures of the device, and through the machine learning algorithm, it will determine the grade of the phone, which again is pretty cool when you compare that to the manual process where it's subjective across the board, right? You can have strict grading criterias, but at the end of the day, we're all humans. Everyone makes mistakes, right? So it's cool that you have a standard process, right, that you can replicate, that you can scale, and you can also automatically test all the functionality on the device, right? We check more than 35 checkpoints, right? When we talk specifically about the functionality, right? Talking about all the sensors, the screen sensitivity, the cameras, the audio, the vibration. So pretty much every functionality you can find on the device gets tested by the machine. and then you get the test results, which are sent to your cloud database, or a test certificate that you can also print out and provide to your customers, as an added value, right? Sort of like as a transparency and a proof that the device works correctly, or to justify the buyback price. For example, if something goes wrong with the phone and you notice that, okay, look, for example, there are like some burnt pixels on the screen, so we're not gonna pay you like the maximum available price. We're gonna pay you a price that takes into account the problem with the screen. So again, this is all really transparent and adds up to what Marco was mentioning earlier, right? This trust that you want to increase with your customer when you talk about the buyback processes, especially, right? And what I also wanted to mention that you have the opportunity to try it out for yourself, right? Like Marco and Promobi did, both in the warehouse and retail scenarios. They tried out the robotic solutions. You've heard about the experience, about the benefits that the guys noticed. So you can get the same results, right? You can try it out and see what would be the benefits for you. That's what I wanted to say about the robot and the opportunity that you have now to leave a request to try it out. We also saved some time for Q&A, and I see that we already have some questions coming in, which is great. So I know that we have some time left. Marco, you good to stay for Q&A for extra like 5 minutes, just to confirm? You're muted if.
Yeah, it will be my pleasure, definitely.
Okay, cool. So let's go one by one from the oldest question. Like Edward asks, in your experience, how has the lack of automation affected the retail sector? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so like you mentioned in the beginning, so the biggest thing automation brings, it's the consistent results. So in our experience, if you have a large retail chain, not everyone will give the same give the same grading and give the same diagnostic result if you do it manually. Like I said, people are very subjective, and this can affect your margin at the end and the value you can get from each device. So automating this process of diagnostics, of grading, and determining the value of the device, you can have consistent results across all of your shops. So you do not rely on subjective opinion of people, and this way you can easily scale it and have consistent results all the time. So automation brings that benefit. So if you have high traffic and you want to have consistently good results, then you should definitely consider automation, the whole process.
Great. Thanks for that. Pablo asks, was it hard to automate things?
Without the robot, it's very hard because you have to have exceptionally good managers that can give the employees the right kind of training they need to do it consistently and to have good results continuously. With the robot, you don't have to worry about that because the robot is programmed to do it exactly every time, exactly the same thing. So this way, without the robot, I don't know how. It's very difficult to automate the process and to have consistent results. Is it hard? You just have to buy it, and you have to put it in place and to see if it brings you the results like we did. So it's a capital investment. Definitely, you have to consider that. But in the long run, if you have a stable business and you have good quantities, it's worth it. So
Cool. Great. Nicholas asks a question, I guess probably for myself, but we'll see. In order to evaluate the monitor impact of the robot solution, other than the salary cost and average time it takes to check the cosmetics, what other factors are you taking into account to assess the true upside of the solution versus manual process? It's a great question, by the way. I'm gonna do my best to answer, but I'm also curious about Marco's take on this, right? So, in order to evaluate the monitor impact of the robot solution, other than the salary cost, I would also keep in mind the accuracy of tests, right? Because if we talk about the manual process of checking phones, it's inevitable that someone will make a mistake, right? And you always have a risk of buying a faulty phone, right? So there is a first aspect that you need to keep in mind when comparing the robotic solution versus the manual one, that you have always this risk of buying a faulty handset, which will basically impact your bottom line negatively. The second thing that I would mention here is what Marco touched as well, is this conversion uplift with the buyback processes, right? That you're able to buy more phones just because you have more transparency, right? You have a tool that helps increase trust from people willing to trade in their phones, right? And because you're able to provide a real thorough check of the phones, you can also provide a more attractive price as well to your customer, because you're sure that the phone that you're buying is indeed working, right? And also you have this wow factor that we've mentioned, right? That you attract more traffic to your shops. So I guess those three factors are something that you can take into account when evaluating the monetary impact. Curious, Marco, would you add anything?
Yeah, definitely. I should have mentioned this before, but good thing I remembered. One other thing we also are currently figuring out and seeing if it makes sense, testing basically, is another revenue stream which this solution can bring you. So even if people don't end up using the converting and doing the trade-in or buyback or selling their phone to you or doing the trade-in to buy a new one. One other thing you can also do is because the robot at the end of the whole process gives you a transparent test results, and you can basically help people, even if they don't want to sell you their phone, help them to sell their phone somewhere else. And you can charge this as a service. This is something that we are considering currently to see. Right now, we're giving it for free. We're trying to see if people are interested to have the test results and using that certified, let's say, certified test, which is completed by a robot by standardized practice. You have these 60 plus tests completed, and you can see the fail pass for every test completed, and you have the gradings at the end. So you have a report at the end which you can charge for. Even if these people want to go on the white pages and sell it themselves, they can use this report as like a transparent let's say, tool to sell their device easier. So if they want to go on white pages in Serbia, Kupujem Prodajem, which is online white pages website, everyone posts second-hand devices there, and people go and see if they can find what they need over there for something cheaper. So people can come, do the test, get the report, and then post it online to see if they can sell it for more value. And you can charge this for a few euros or give it for free just to generate goodwill and traffic for future customers. This is something also to consider. So another revenue stream, which honestly we are testing right now to see if it makes sense. But I think it's a good idea to also have that in mind. People, even if they don't want to sell their phone, they can use this report to sell it themselves. And if you want, you can charge this, let's say, a few euros or however much you want. So this is another upside to it. If you do manual testing, you don't get a report. You can get a report in writing or something like that, but it's not professional. So this way, after the test is completed, you have a report of everything that's completed, and you can charge this as well. And I can see that they're asking, do you also do wipe during the evaluation? If you buy the phone, then by law, I mean not by law, but by GDPR compliance, you should wipe every device, and the machine gives you this ability to wipe the device clean at the end of test. So people are safe that, and they have I can't remember what kind of certificate they get, but they get a certificate to be sure that they that their data is deleted, and they should not worry about stealing of data and so on.
Yeah.
So it's very important step as well to mention. It does wiping at the end.
Yeah, yeah, that's really important. And you can also provide the data erasure report to your customer as well to increase this trust
Yeah.
and transparency. Guys, I see that we have a lot of questions in the chat, and I just want to sincerely thank you all for such an involvement. It's great to see such an engagement here. Fortunately, we won't be able to address those live since we're pretty much ran out of time already. So I suggest the following, right? We'll gather all those questions and we'll make sure to get back to you by email with the answers on all of them. If you have any questions for Marco specifically, you can also let us know. But on this note, I just want to thank you a lot for joining in, for your engagement during the today's session, for your question, for your participation. And Marco, thanks a lot for being with us today. Tons of very valuable insights today, right? So,
Oh,
and I
my
see that you
pleasure. My
posted
pleasure.
your email there as well, which is good, guys. This
Yeah,
is
if you're interested, even if it's not regarding NSYS or anything else, if you want to do business, please let us know. You can find my email in the chat, and I will be happy to help you set up the process if you need, to walk you together with NSYS team to see the best way to set up your operation. So yeah, it was my pleasure, and thank you for having me, and good luck with further operations. All the best.
Sure. Thanks so much, Marco. Thanks a lot again, guys, for joining it. That's it for today. As I said, lots of unanswered questions, great questions. We'll make sure that we'll reply to you by email after the webinar. Thanks again. Take care. And that's it for now. Bye.
Bye bye.